Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and today I want to talk about Death Duel by Chor Yuen. It's a 1977 wuxia film, and I've talked about his films on the blog before, but this is one that I haven't reviewed, and I thought it'd be nice to do one that I hadn't reviewed, so that we could talk about something that influenced Doggergate, but not something that you've maybe already read my opinions on. So this is, like I said, it's a Chor Yuen film, and sometimes, just so you know, his name is occasionally reversed so that it's Yuen Chu. So it depends on where it's appearing and all that, but it just has to do with where the Chinese surnames are usually come before the personal names. So anyways, it stars Derek Yee and Candice Yu, and it's a really nice introduction to Chor Yuen's work. He's kind of known for having gorgeous sets, really beautiful landscapes and costumes, and developing atmosphere, and you just get the sense that you've been on a journey by the end of the movie because he picks his locations really well. And it's really aided by the fact that this is a Shaw Brothers movie, so he's got those beautiful Shaw Brothers sets to use. And I think in every one of his movies that I've commented on, with maybe the exception of Killer Klans, I've commented on just how spectacular the imagery is. And if you've seen a film like, say, Hero, something more recent, it's sort of known for having that beautiful imagery and color and all that, and you're thinking of going and checking out an older film, Chor Yuen is a good director to start with, because he really kind of gets that feel, that sort of that emphasis on the look of the movie. So Death Duel is number one, it's got a great title, but number two, it's and again, I can't talk about this movie without spoiling it, so I'm gonna have to spoil some things. If you don't want it to be spoiled, just go and watch the movie and then come back and hopefully it won't be won't be spoiled for you. But I literally cannot talk about the characters' names without spoiling this film. So that's why I'm issuing the spoiler warning. And so it's about a character named Third Master, who's sort of the supreme swordsman in the land, and he's so good that he has to kill hundreds of people every year because they just come, people come looking for him to fight. And he gets tired of all the killing, so he goes into hiding and seclusion, and he takes the name Achi. And at a brothel where these courtesans are trying to seduce him, and he's putting up a fight, they call him Hopeless Achi, and that becomes his sort of nickname. And so while he's there, he meets a courtesan named Zhao Li, played by Candice Yu, and they end up becoming friends, and then a romance emerges, and he ends up staying with her family. It's more complicated than that, but I'm just simplifying how they get from point A to point B, because it would be confusing otherwise. But so he ends up staying with her family, and in the meantime, there's another swordsman that's looking for him because he's the number 2 swordsman in the land, and he wants to. He wants to defeat Third Master and become number 1. But by the time he gets to Third Master's residence, he's told that Third Master has died, and he sees the coffin, and he just succumbs to despair and goes into seclusion himself, and is basically a hermit. So in the background of all this is another interesting character. It's Lady Mu Yung, and she's sort of devising a plot of her own where her brother is another contender for the supreme sword of the land, but he's gone crazy because he practiced this insane kung fu technique, and it drove him nuts. And so now he's just like laughing and cackling, and they have to put him in a cage, like he's literally in a cage. And she just wants to get Third Master and Yenshi-san together. Yenshi-san is the number 2 guy, fighting so that she can unleash her brother on them, and he can kill them both and take the title of Supreme Swordsman. So that's sort of a very, very oversimplified retelling of the plot line. But along the way, you go through. There's just so many wonderful fight scenes and set pieces and interesting characters. I think it's pretty typical of Gulong. You get these characters with very interesting personalities and backgrounds, but he also has sympathies for characters that might not be painted as fully in the hands of another writer. So for example, the Zhao Li character is a courtesan, but she ends up in a relationship with Third Master, and I don't want to spoil what happens with them, but these are I think the characters are more compelling because he's willing to make characters from segments of society where that are usually have regarded much more lowly in movies like this. So and there's also, I think there's also just a general in Gulong sort of a bristling at the social order. So it kind of shines through. And there's a wonderful scene where Third Master, who's recently been poisoned and is going to die in 3 days because he was literally poisoned to the bone, and so the only way for him to save himself is to find some herbalist who can extract the poison from his bone marrow. So he's in really dire straits, and he finds himself at an inn, and there's a Confucian scholar there, sort of reciting, and he goes over to the scholar and he says, so tell me, what would you, if you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do? And the guy, says like, well, I would make proper arrangements for my funeral, and this drives Third Master a little bit batty, and he grabs a Confucian scholar and he says, no, tell me the truth. And the guy eventually confesses that he'd go to a brothel and drink and gamble, and that he studied the classics his whole life just so he could, drink and gamble. And so the scholar ends up running away, and then he goes to the daughter and he asks her what she would do. And she looks to the father and she says, well, she said she looks back at him and she says, I'd find a man. and so then she kind of has a similar thing where, she's like, I'd find a man and sleep with him before I died. So it's sort of like these characters, it's just like a really interesting exposure of the characters in a genre where people are usually so proper. And Gulong kind of, I think, likes to smash through some of that. And I don't know how much of this is Gulong versus how much of it is Chor Yuen in this particular case, but it just does a really good job of that. And again, I would recommend anybody who is at all interested in this or the Killer Klans movies or any of the other Gulong inspired films that I've talked about, get 11th Son. It's a very short book. It's a very quick read, and it's really excellent. I think if you've read that, it gives you a lot more insight into some of these movies. So, and there are fan translations of his other works if you want to try to track those down. So, anyways, it's just a that was just an example of sort of the of how he sort of likes to smash the social order, but it's also a very sort of chivalrous movie in the end. It's this is ultimately about a duel, and it's called Death Duel, and we get the duel, and it's number one, it's one of the more remarkable duels I've seen at the end of a film, and I think that's because there are so many interesting little things going on. Number one, the landscape and the gorgeous sets that you always would expect from this director, but also the situation is complex enough that you have sort of this three-way duel between the two contenders and the brother of Lady Mu Yung. So it just creates an interesting situation. And in the end, the two men do duel, and it's the result is is misleading and interesting, and I don't want to give it away, but it's done well, and you will leave satisfied. If provided this is the kind of movie you like, but if this is the sort of film you like, you'll definitely leave satisfied, I think. So I highly recommend Death Duel. And I'm sorry if I haven't done it justice. It's I'm trying to talk about it without getting too wrapped up in the plot. But it's a really great movie. It's a nice example of Chor Yuen's work, and it has a couple of really cool cameos in it, which I've spoiled enough, so I won't spoil the cameos. But actors from two other movies make an appearance, reprising their roles from those movies, and it's a really I thought it was a nice touch, and it's very brief, but it still works. And it has, I should say, I had mentioned the marrow extraction. It has that scene, and it's really brutal. The rest of the movie's not that bad, but when he literally has to extract the poison from his bones, that I even had trouble watching that. So just be on your toes for that scene. But all right. So I highly recommend this one, and I think I am actually going to finally talk about some '90s stuff tomorrow. I know I've been teasing that all week, and I'd really like to get some of that stuff discussed. So we'll probably try to do that tomorrow. This is my third or fourth attempt trying to review this. I tried to review it without the spoilers, and I couldn't do it. So I do apologize if spoilers ruin it for you, but I just could not talk about this movie without spoiling a few things. But there's still plenty in there. Trust me, I just touched the surface. I didn't get that deep into the plot, and a lot of it I so oversimplified. When you actually see it, it takes a much different course than you might expect from the way I've been retelling it. So anyways, I will talk to you later. I hope you enjoyed the review. If there are any movies you want me to review, definitely feel free to mention them. I'm trying to make a point now. I had mentioned Lady Hermit the other day, or I'd reviewed it, and I almost regret doing it because I realized that it's not really easily available anymore. I thought it was. I know I had checked for a friend not too long ago, and there were copies of it online. But when I checked yesterday on Amazon, it was like $90. Now maybe that's just a temporary thing, but I'm trying to review films that people will have easy access to. Just because I don't see the point in me reviewing a movie that only I own one of 3 existing copies of or something. So I don't have anything that valuable in my collection, but you know what I mean. I don't want to review something that that other people can't easily obtain. So if you do recommend something, just make sure it's one that, number one, I can get if I haven't seen it, but number two, if I have seen it, one that other people can get, because it's some of these movies, they disappear and they're really hard to find. So, and there's nothing worse than hearing someone talk about a movie that you can't even watch. So unless you just really want to find out what it's all about. But anyways, I will talk to you later, and have a good day.